toys found within the walls of our own homes can be priceless. What are some of the treasured possessions that you own? Let's take a look at 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1, what do you think will happen to all of your possessions when you take your last breath on earth? Your family and loved ones might keep a couple of things that they could use, like maybe some of your clothes or tools, kitchen appliances, or something to remember you by. But the majority of your possessions would probably be boxed up and taken to the thrift store or thrown in the trash. Scenario number 2, if your house caught on fire today, what would you grab and rescue from your home? Besides your loved ones and pets, would you grab that cherished keepsake that was passed down to you from great-great-grandma Jean? Or perhaps it's your baseball when you hit your first home run. Or maybe it's the wedding photos that captured one of your most prized memories. Now, what happens if you're out of town on vacation and your son or daughter is staying in your home and your house catches on fire? Will they have any clue to the items that are most valuable to you? Probably not, unless you have already shared the story behind the items of significance. Trust me, without the story behind your possessions, it is just a worthless item. It is when we share and teach others that there is a story behind our possessions that creates the priceless value far beyond the actual cost of acquiring them. Scenario number 2 hits close to home because one day when we lived in Pennsylvania, there was a fire coming close to our home. This was a forest fire, and they had called us to be ready to leave at any moment's notice. And so we gathered the few things we had, including water and food, into our car. And do you know what I grabbed? I grabbed all of the family history records that I had because those were most precious to me, as well as the family scrapbook and my external hard drive for my computer. Let's take a look at a few examples of some items that may not have an apparent value, but once you understand the story behind them, the value increases and the desire to preserve it becomes a priority.
My name is Richard Potter. I want to tell a story about these Staffordshire ceramic King Charles Spaniels. These have been in my family for 5 generations. A very popular item in England. My 3rd great-grandfather, and these were his family's. My grandmother grew up with these in her home, and apparently in England these were they were called fireplace dogs, and they were in most homes. And they were very interested in the royalty, and so if the king had it, everybody had one. When my dad's family immigrated to the United States, they brought these dogs as part of their family treasures. They mean a lot to me. They've just stood guard over the family over all those generations.
Hi, I'm Heather, and I wanted to share about my grandma, my mom's mom. Her name's Leona Sarah Lewis Hansen. And this is a shadow box I made with a few of the things that she treasured. Her mirror, and she loved to look nice and dress up. And she had some brooches and pins, earrings, necklace. So I put together this with a few of her things that she kept that were important. I also have a watch and some little notes and some pictures. This is her and her husband, Paul. And I was very close to my grandma, and so she's my grandma my only grandma that I remember. And she was very special to me. She always came for holidays and special events. We'd go camping in the motorhome during the summers, and she would bring lemon drops, and every time we were sick, we pretended we were sick and had a tummy ache, and we would tell grandma we had a tummy ache so that she would give us a medicine or a pill, and that lemon drop was our medicine to make us feel better. And she always made things fun and special, always looked beautiful, always spoke kindly, and was gentle. And
my name is Amy Hall. This is my great-grandma's piano. She bought it after when she got her first job out of high school. She was a school teacher. She bought it, and after she got married, my grandma and her 4 siblings all learned how to play on it. If you look at the the black keys, they're kind of worn down, and that's from being played so much. She had it, and then she passed it on to my grandma. And then when I started taking piano lessons about the age of 12, my grandpa went to the person that they'd given the piano to and asked if he could have it back because his granddaughter was learning how to play the piano. And so they weren't using it anymore, so they did. And I really enjoy playing this because it reminds me of my ancestors, my grandma and my great grandma, and the fact that they had the talent to play the piano, and I guess I do too, so it brings me closer to them.
Hi, my name is Charles Louis Vassell, and I'll talk about my dad, who's passed on already. He was born in Michigan in 1916. This is a picture of him right here, picture of me and my other side of the family, my mother's side of the family. Well, Dad had worked for the military in Hawaii. He was in the Navy at first, but then when he got out, he went to work for Public Works, which is kind of a contractor for the military. In the Navy, they did wings on airplanes, to hangars, to computer rooms, and all kinds of stuff. And Dad had some tools and things he had. I have one of his tools here. It's actually a AFA film cassette, film holder, a D6, if you know what that is. But it's his little shop things, his tools, his dies, he kept, and he gave it to me a long time ago. And I've had it since then. And along with his favorite little coin holder. He would always pull his coins out and pay with whatever coins he had here. My dad was a very mechanically minded guy. He built his house in Hawaii. It's still there today, made out of concrete blocks. He went to school to learn how to pour the concrete, and I helped him throughout the years. As a little boy, he put me down he's at a coconut tree over there. He put me down as a baby, and when I got to be a high school teenager, we were still building. This is the dish that Mom and Dad, when they got married, this is the pot that was, see what it said, made in USA. Can you imagine that? Something made in USA, not China. So Mom and Dad got this. This is a set of a bean pot that was given to them at their wedding. They didn't have any metal. In fact, somebody gave them a homemade chair that stood in our kitchen for the longest time. It was made out of plywood. During the war, all metals were used for the war effort. And so they had ceramic or handmade things. Dad said he used to have to request to go get lumber to make furniture for the house when he moved up to Public Layer, because all the wood and everything was going towards the war effort. So this is the pot that they got. It's a set of them that they got when they were married, way before I was born.
My name is Dipali and I'm from Pune, India. I'm just going to show you something that my grandmother used when she worked at the grocery store to weigh things. This was used this is almost 70-80 years ago she used it. So that is something. And these are the weights that to be put on one side, and whatever you want to weigh would go in the other side of the. These are my grandparents. This is my grandmother. She's wearing Nawari, that is traditional Maharashtrian sari. And my grandfather is wearing dhotar and sadra.
I'd like to tell the story behind this valise, briefcase, if you will. This belonged to my mother's father, Alma Murphy, and he was born in 1873 in Mill Creek, Utah. And in 1901, he was assigned to serve a mission in the southern states, and he took this briefcase with him. Here's a picture that was taken. He's got that valise right there by his feet, and this was as he left on his mission assignment. He left a farm, a wife, kids. My mother wasn't born yet. There were letters in this from my grandmother and to my grandmother, but I gave the letters to my cousin, and they were just you could just feel how those people felt, and he was so dutiful. He did his duty. He did what he was asked to do. This bag is very valuable to me. I didn't know my grandfather died when I was 10. I wanted to live as he lived. And this is kind of a reminder of, he wasn't a rich, my mom says that they were just poor, but they always had enough to eat, and he took care of the family, and my mom tells me stories about him on the farm, and I just love him to death.
So I'm Shawna Brown, and I am going to share about my grandma's cookbook. This is my dad's mom. Her name was Eva Stokes Stubbs. She was born in 1927, and the thing that I love about my grandma is that when I think of her, she was a homemaker. And another thing that I love about my grandma is she was cooking. She never wasted anything. She also grew up through the Great Depression, and so she was not one to waste anything. And she had a garden, and so she loved to make everything from her garden and try to use everything that grew. Something that I thought was kind of funny was that I was looking through these recipes, and one of the recipes that she had X'd out was green tomato jam. Probably like she'd had some green tomatoes and tried to make green tomato jam, and it was X'd out, so clearly that was not a favorite recipe that she had had. She had a huge apricot tree. A lot of my memories in her kitchen are of her canning and bottling. We'd help her with the cherries. We'd pit the cherries, or we'd help her can the apricots. And when my husband and I were first married, we were both students, and she asked us if we wanted to come over and pick apricots, and we took home boxes of apricots, and she gave us a bunch of jars and gave us her recipe. And I should have known, because she wasn't a big sugar person, that her recipe was probably already cut back in sugar, but we cut it back a little bit in sugar thinking we could save some sugar and they wouldn't be as sweet. And we got finished bottling all of these apricots, and we opened our first can, and it was sour. They did not taste very well, but knowing that she had given them to us and how she was about wasting, we saved them and we put them on the shelf. And that ended up being a huge blessing for us, because the next semester we were very tight on money, and we didn't have the money that we needed for food. And rather than going into debt or buying things that we couldn't afford, we turned to our sour apricots and a bag of rice, and that's what we ate for a good few months until we were able to kind of recoup our finances. And how grateful I am for my grandma, that she has just been such a steady, good example of being a homemaker in the home, and not ever making it more complicated than it needed to be, just being grateful for what she had and using it in the best way that she could. And so grateful for her example, because that's kind of my life right now too. And I've just become a grandma, and I'm so grateful for her example, and pray that maybe I can be that kind of an example for my posterity.
Hi, my name is Savannah, and this is the engagement ring my grandpa got my grandma, and it's actually a baby rattle. One thing I learned from my grandma and grandpa is to care and serve for others. And this is the coat my great-grandpa wore in Michigan when he was a little boy. And this is the camera my great-grandpa used to take pictures with this camera of my mom and her family when they would go on camping trips. Even though I didn't know my great-grandpa, I know he was a hard worker because my grandpa is, and I want to be a hard worker like them.
Now that you have heard from a few examples, we want to hear from you. Click on the link below and share your story with us.